All right, joining us now, tonight's Power Panel, Democratic strategist Kevin Chavis, Ricochet.com's editor-in-chief John Gabriel, and Kelsey Bolar from the Heritage Foundation. Welcome to all of you tonight.
Good evening.
Thank you.
Okay, so a little bit more from the spokesperson for Speaker Nancy Pelosi saying this. The improprieties, the lack of transparency around them, they give the House legitimate legislative oversight and legal reasons to review the president's tax returns. We will take all necessary steps, including litigation, if necessary, to obtain them. Kevin, that sounds like they're ready to rumble.
They are, and frankly, this is something that should have been done as soon as Trump was sworn in. Honestly, there was reason to begin to question some of his financial dealings, some of his contacts with Russia, and some other improprieties. I think that Nancy Pelosi's spokesperson laid it out perfectly. I think the Democrats are doing what they're supposed to do. I mean, the Congress members took an oath to the American people, not just to the president. And frankly, when the GOP had control of the House, they just didn't look into this stuff. They sat on their hands. And I think that Cohen's testimony, regardless of whether or not he is 100% credible, certainly raises a lot of questions that need to be looked into. And I think all of us should expect for the Congress Oversight Committee and the Judiciary Committee, all of the intelligence committees need to look into this because it's very serious.
Okay, so all the committees, apparently, there are several of them that are coordinating this request that will go in for tax returns. Now, under law, the chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee can put in a request to the IRS, but then it looks like Secretary Mnuchin is going to be the one who makes the final determination on these tax returns being released. In the meantime, Charlie Kirk tweeting this: I believe we should have an investigation into every multimillionaire in Congress who has accumulated that wealth on a congressional salary using our tax dollars. John?
Yeah, it's really interesting to see. I feel like I'm reading headlines from 2016. I think it would have been great if during the Republican primaries, Donald Trump had released his tax returns, but he didn't. The Republican voters didn't really care. Then the American people elected him president. So I'm not sure what Democrats think they're doing. Maybe they just wanted to go on a fishing expedition and hopefully find something that embarrasses him further. I think they're wasting their time. What they might want to do politically is focus on 2020 rather than trying to relitigate the 2016 election.
Yeah, but Kelsey, much of this will run into 2020. I can't imagine these investigations being wrapped up in the next few months.
It will, and the political risk for Democrats is that they keep making these grand promises about Trump-Russia collusion and now tax fraud. And yet, you know, we're 2 years into the administration and they've come up with nothing. And so I think this is yet another fishing expedition, another witch hunt. And I think, you know, most Americans would like to see Democrats focusing on legislating, not investigating.
Okay, let's turn to another thing that's getting a lot of headlines, which is this is the talk about within the Democratic Party. There are a number of folks over in the House a little miffed. There's a bit of a split because, as Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker, has said, behind closed doors, reportedly, we're either a team or we're not, and we have to make that decision, saying people aren't sticking together. The freshman Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez saying there's a list, and she is keeping watch, and there will possibly be primaries. John, what do you make of that?
Well, it's really interesting. The only reason the Democrats have the House right now is because they ran very moderate candidates with a very moderate message in red states and purple-leaning districts. We know that happened coast to coast. AOC now wants them to go on a far left progressive agenda. And if that happens, I think Nancy Pelosi is going to lose her gavel the next time the election comes around. Different districts need different representation, and AOC doesn't realize that. It's kind of shocking that she doesn't.
Well, the Washington Post had a really interesting story right up that alley, and the headline is Nancy Pelosi hasn't learned her lesson from 2010. And they talked about how in 2009 they had these great majorities and they were getting all kinds of things done, but then there was this very purist, you got to vote with us on cap and trade and all these other kinds of things. Well, they say this time around 29 House Democrats hold districts that Trump won. Others hold seats that had long been Republican but swung to Hillary Clinton in 2016. Members in these seats recognize their voters are different and don't want all of the progressive agenda forced down their throats. Kevin?
Well, I hear that narrative being pushed that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and other members of the Democrats are pushing things that the Americans don't want. But that's not true. Most Americans support things like universal background checks for gun purchases. Most Americans, even now, slightly over half, say they support some form of Medicare for all.
But not once they find out. When you look at the polling numbers, when they find out taxes will go up or there will be a delay in getting tests or treatment, those kinds of things, it falls apart when people are really told about what it would mean in reality. Most Americans don't support abolishing ICE and other kinds of things that are on this list. I mean, in these particular districts, there's real worry, these swing districts, that Democrats that are trying to hold on to those seats are going to have a hard time convincing people who could go either way and that really are not far left or far right.
Mm-hmm. And that is true. And I think that, Representative Ocasio-Cortez was really trying to light a fire under some members of her caucus. I mean, she's been in Congress a month and she's already been able to assume such a strong leadership position. And truthfully, a lot of the things that she's pushing, there is an appetite for.
Well, but Kelsey, I know that there are some in leadership who are worried about how far she's pushing to the left, and they're worried about her challenge to them as well. I mean, it's a dual threat. I want to read a little something from a piece on AmericanThinker.com. They say Ocasio-Cortez's vow to be the bad cop against her fellow Democrats who are too moderate for her comes off as old socialist practices made new again, like Stalin's henchmen. She'll primary them out of office. After that, the real socialism begins. Kelsey?
There's so much hypocrisy going on with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez here, because when she wants to buck party leadership to put forth her Green New Deal, she's allowed to do that. She considers a hero for doing that, and many members of the press also consider her a hero. And yet, when moderate Democrats want to vote for a measure as logical as requiring illegal immigrants who attempt to purchase a firearm to be reported to ICE, she has a problem with the 26 Democrats who voted in favor of that. Yeah. Really, this whole situation just shows how far left the Democrat Party has turned, really, on her behalf.
Well, and they want to keep everybody on the same message within the party, as both sides often try to do. All right, Power Panel, thank you very much. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
You too. Thanks.